السلام عليكم جميعا. معكم أخوكم الحسن حميد الدين من وزارة الاستثمار المشرف العام على برنامج المقرات الإقليمية. البرزنتيشن هذه بس بتلقى باللغة الإنجليزية عشان بس الجميع يعرف عنها. I'll be talking about this whole presentation in English. Thank you. Yes. So I only know this English here. No worries. But who would like actually to have a seat, sir?
Oh.
Yep.
So
I'm presenting, yeah.
That's I'm actually presenting it for.
Oh, you're four. Okay, so I believe I'm not being presented to those because there's a confusion. They told me to start presenting right now.
That's why I was.
No worries. Okay, thank you. So to go over the presentation of the regional headquarters, it's one of the programs that actually was created to support the Vision 2030 main pillars, which is making Saudi Arabia the business hub of the region. To know more about it, number one, we need to be the RHQ hub in the MENA region, supporting, making sure all the decision makers of the companies, the regional headquarters to be in Saudi Arabia. We'd like actually to be the center of administrative power where the key decisions of the companies to be based in Saudi Arabia. And also with that, we make sure that we attract the right executives and talents into Saudi Arabia and reside them actually to be in Saudi Arabia in Riyadh or Jeddah or Dammam, as it's a national program for whole Saudi. This is the definition of the program, where it's actually the RHQ is a unit of a multinational group established under the laws of Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for the purpose of three major things: strategic directions, management functions, and support for the entities. It does not have a commercial license to make business with third party. That is going to be your operating entity to do that. For that sake, it's mainly for management, strategic directions, and support functions to the entities of the companies that exist in the MENA region. MENA stands for Middle East and North Africa. If the company's region is bigger than the MENA, then there's no problem at all in that. You could have it like a MEA or MENA plus additional countries. Some consideration to put in mind about the RHQ. The RHQ, once it's registered, it cannot be a JV, it cannot be actually any other entities that you could have there. It needs to be 100% by the foreign entity. More than that, it's a separate legal personality. It means it has its own CR, own bank account, own sponsorship of people like any other entities. It also has a presence of a physical office. If you already have the physical office of your operating entity and it's big enough to accommodate the RHQ employees, you can have that in a very unique setup where you have the RHQ lease paid by the operating entity, and in the same office you are going to have two kind of licenses, one for the RHQ and the other is going to be for the operating entity. The RHQ is not intended to conduct any commercial operations as mentioned before, and it's very important for you to know which multinational companies are allowed to do the RHQ. There are any entities that have at least two subsidiaries or branches in two different countries, anywhere in the globe, other than Saudi Arabia, and beside the country of the global headquarters. Now, these are some of the RHQ activities that actually you should know what can the RHQ do. So we said strategic directions, management functions, and support activities. The mandatory ones are the strategic directions and management functions as they apply to the companies. And the common task you can see here, literally any HQ in the world is doing that, so we're not asking for any unique setups. When it comes to the optional activities, we're asking the companies to at least do 3 of those optional activities at the RHQ. The more they do, the merrier, of course, but the minimum we're asking for 3. If a company wants to submit for the RHQ, they need to fulfill certain requirements. These are some of the requirements just for you to know. 1, it needs to be a multinational company as per the definition that we discussed in one of the first slides. Second, it needs to be the center of administrative power. That means the key administration power that exists in the region needs to be at the RHQ. Third, the RHQ operation, which was mentioned in the previous slide from the mandatory and the optional activities, were required to be taking place there. Fourth, the number of employees of the RHQ where we're expecting within the first year cycle from the time you receive the MISA RHQ license, we're expecting to have at least 15 employees. And the 15 employees, at least 3 of those needs to be the RHQ senior leadership, and the remaining 12, it depends on the company. There could be additional executives, there could be managers, or even admin. But the most important thing, whoever works in the regional headquarters must have a regional role. Okay? Now, to know more about what are the different benefits that the RHQ offers to the companies, I'm going to start from the top right, going in a circle to the right. So first, we have the exception from Saudization for the first 10 years. Now, a lot of people are asking, usually the direction of the government here is looking for Saudization. Why are we doing the opposite in the RHQ for the first 10 years? You need to know one important thing about regional headquarters for the companies. It's the center of power in the region. And it's a sensitive position. It's not just something that you fulfill people. You need to bring the right caliber and give them the room to bring the right calibers. Now, companies globally, some of them has been in the Saudi for ages. Others, actually, they're new to the region. And we need them to have equal chances in competition. Hence, for that, we're telling the companies that they do have an exception from Saudization for the first 10 years in all functions. If some companies said, we do have regional actually people who are Saudis, it's up to them to do that, but they're not forced. The second thing here is to the right, the end-to-end services. So we provide separate services to the companies that supports them in acquiring the business documents, which means the CR, the opening the file of Ministry of Human Resource, getting the tax authority license. We do support them in all these processes. Moreover, if you're looking actually searching for an offices, or they are searching for people to support them in hiring people, or even to help them in the search for accommodation for the employees, or even schools for their kids. Some of these services, as I mentioned right now, they are all provided by the end-to-end services for the RHQ, provided as a free of charge service fees. The thing after that, the visa limit exemptions. So we have mentioned that we're talking about minimally 15 people within the first year. What about the maximum? There is no limit for the maximum. As a matter of fact, once you acquire or open the file of the Ministry of Human Resource, you will be getting automatically 250 working visa ready to be deployed for the RHQ employees. Looking for more? We can even give you more for that. Fourth thing, work visa for professions. So some people would think that some working visa are only meant for some professions, others are not. For the RHQ, we don't have any discrimination in that. Whatever profession, even if it's mentioned that these job functions for Saudis, at the RHQ level, it could be for non-Saudis. The spouse work permit, usually for spouses, for the employees, if they wish to work for any other company, they are required actually to change their sponsorship to the company they work for. For the RHQ families, we have changed that by actually asking them to maintain the sponsorship with their partner and to make sure that utilizing a portal called Ajir portal to actually utilize it to work wherever they wish while they maintain the sponsorship with their partner. Eligibility of premium residency. So the top 3 executives of the regional headquarters and their family will be granted the premium residency, which some people call it the golden visa, free of charge. The one above, the professional acceleration. So there are some functions that are requiring from some government entities. Some government entities, they require that you need to have accreditation certificates. An example of some of these certificates, engineering, medical, legal, or even accounting. For the RHQ employees, they are actually exempted from the requirement of these accreditation, except for 2 functions, due to their sensitivity. One is medical, and the second is engineering. When it comes to the dependent age, and that's going to be the children for the RHQ families, usually the law in Saudi Arabia, up to the age of 21 years old, the dependent is under the sponsorship of their parents. After that, they usually change to the company or something different. For the RHQ employees' families, we have raised that age to be 25 years old, meaning that they can have actually their dependent finish studying college while they are still under the sponsorship of the RHQ family. So this is a glimpse of some of the services. And before I move on to the next slide, you need to know one thing about the program, that this program is continuously evolving. So all these services were been set there at the beginning of the program, and last year we have added the premium residency service. And this year, who knows what we're going to have. But before talking about this year, let's talk about one important incentive that's been added last year, and this is about the tax relief incentives for the RHQ entities. That was released in December last year, and pretty much it's asking for actually a 30 years exceptions in tax at the RHQ entities, mainly on the withholding tax and the company income tax part related to the RHQ activities to its entities. A lot of people do ask, but the RHQ does not have a commercial license to generate revenue. How we can benefit from that? If you ask accountant and finance team, they are going to tell you that the cross charges of services between the RHQ and the entities, which is allowed, these will incur taxes, and these tax release will benefit the RHQ, will benefit from them to not incur additional taxes. Because one thing we can tell about the RHQ, it's the cost center that helps the company and the growth in the region. Now talking about the procurement law. The procurement law was released actually on the 6th of January 2023 to public. And it's mainly actually stating that for all companies, multinational companies, dealing with the government tenders, and they do not have the regional headquarters in Saudi Arabia, but they have it in the region. And there's something very important when they say they have it in the region. It doesn't mean legally they have it in the region, because legally only Saudi Arabia that has the official license for it, but we're talking about activities of RHQs. Activities of RHQ could be from one country supporting another country. That by itself is considered a regional headquarter activity. So for those who are doing actually these RHQ activities, and it's not in Saudi Arabia, the RHQ, it states here that this law, they will not actually be able by 1/1/2024 to go into government tenders of Saudi, except in 4 situations. Number 1, if the bidding is less than 1 million Saudi riyal, so they don't look actually for the requirement of the RHQ, the government. Number 2, if the project is taking place outside Saudi Arabia with the Saudi government outside. For example, having the business with the embassy of Saudi Arabia or the consulate of Saudi Arabia anywhere outside, it doesn't require the RHQ. Third thing, if the project can only be done by a company, meaning they are the solo provider of such a product that is well known globally, such as pharmaceutical companies. Pharmaceutical companies could have a medicine, and they're the only one in the world could do that. This means, in this line, it's like a force majeure for the government to allow the government to deal with that company, even if they don't have RHQ, but that's going to be limited to the product. More than that, the pricings. Pricing is, to give you the scenario, let's say that a company or a group of companies were bidding for a government tender. The majority of these companies managed to pass the technical assessment of the tender. Now they're going to open the pricings, and it happened to be the cheapest company is a company without regional headquarters in Saudi Arabia. But the second cheapest is a company with the regional headquarters in Saudi. So what's going to happen? We will compare the price between both companies. If the difference in price is more than 25%, the government will go with the cheapest company, even if they don't have regional headquarters. But if the difference is less than 25%, that means the government is willing to pay up to 25% in difference just to deal with the company that has a regional headquarter program. That's pretty much what it means. Now, there's a fifth condition. It's not to do with the companies, it's with the government entity. Let's say a ministry or authority. Let's say they want to deal with a specific company, and that company, it's a multinational company that the RHQ scope works on it. They don't have RHQ, and these 4 exceptions do not apply to them. So what's going to happen? What's going to happen is that government entity will be required to file an appeal to a committee that is chaired by LCGPA, stands for Local Content and Government Purchases Authority. And this LCGPA committee will look into this matter with the members who are made from different government entities and will decide either to go with this exception or reject it. Now, this is the last slide for me, just to show you where you can find information about the region headquarters. One, you can go to the website of investsaudi.sa, navigate to the page of the regional headquarters, where it can give you information about it. If you scroll down, you'll find the FAQ section, gives you more information about it. And also, it's the same page where you can start the application process for the RHQ. The second thing here is in the website of the ministry, where if you go to the investment manual and you scroll down to section 3.19, you are going to find information about the licensing of the RHQs with some terms and conditions about it. With that, I've reached the end of these slides. If you have any questions in both languages, Arabic or English, I'll be more than happy to support. تفضل.
Sorry. بالنسبة للexemption للpremium visas, does it include exemption of all the requirements, like purchasing property or just the fees, the annual fees or one-time fees?
So for the RHQ, you do not need actually to fulfill any of those new products of the premium residency. It's automatically given. So we assess the company's candidates to make sure that they are the top 3 executives of the region that are in the RHQ, and we provide it to them, and we have special path with the premium residency for that. معاكم أي سؤال أو استفسار؟ جماعة الخير؟ قل لي ما نوقف بس. حلو، تفضل. What's your presentation, sir, going to be about? No worries. It's okay. Sure. No worries.
Is there a minimum capital number or financials? I missed it.
Sure. So when it comes to the financials of getting this license, talking about the license, the minimum capital requirement is 10,000 Saudi Riyal. And talking about the fees of the license, the first year it will cost 12,000 Saudi Riyal, and every additional year for this specific license is going to be 2,000 Saudi Riyal. Now remaining, talking about the other licenses such as the CR, the municipality license, so on, these remains the same as if you're an operating entity.